Hey guys, I'm Evan. Welcome to Country View Solar. So today we're going to be building the Yixiang DIY vertical battery box kit. And this kit comes with everything you need to build the batteries. The battery cells are included. You get 16 314 amp hour batteries, and that means this battery will be just over 16 kilowatt hours once you have it built. So it comes with the battery box. It also comes with all the wiring, hardware, bus bars, comes with a 200 amp JK BMS, and it also comes with the LCD screen as well. And it has a fire arrestor that goes on the inside. So let's go ahead. We'll start opening this up. We'll get all the parts out and we'll get it assembled. So I just looked up this kit on their website. Today it is listed as $1,768, which is almost half price off of a name brand battery for sure. You're definitely going to save $1,000, $2,000, maybe more assembling this battery yourself. So if you do decide to go this route, the only downsides I see right now is that since you're building the battery yourself, it's not going to be UL listed, it's not going to be UL certified, and then you're also going to have to program the battery management system. You got to program it so it matches the battery type that's in there and that it's all configured properly. If you ended up purchasing a battery, that would already be done for you. All right, got the battery opened up. I took out the hold downs. One's marked A and B, and then I went ahead and I wrote that inside of there to know exactly where they go back. And then all of the other parts are inside of here. So we've got some fairly thick foam here, probably to help with compression of the batteries to hold it in place. And right here, all bundled up, we have a bunch of EVO sheets. They're kind of like a thin foam sheet. Think of it as a cushion that goes between each battery. And then you have these yellow epoxy sheets. Now these will go under the battery, around the battery, on top of the battery. Think of this as like a protective layer that goes around it that's non-conductive. Goes all the way around the stack of batteries. Inside of this box right here, you can't probably see it, but this is the LCD screen. And then inside of this box, we have all of our hardware. We've got our battery terminal covers. We've got this, here is the fire arrestor. And then we have a bunch of bolts in here for the bus bars. And then we also have the stack of bus bars as well. So in this box, we have a couple of handles. And then we've got 4 casters that go on the bottom of the battery. All right, now that I got all the parts out, we'll go ahead, we'll start with the casters. All right, I got the casters mounted. I put the locking casters in the front, and then these are non-locking casters in the back. On the side, there is already handles. So these other handles, they appear to mount up here on top. All right, I got both top handles mounted to the top of the case. So the next thing to install is the epoxy sheets. So we've got a couple here that have no sticky tape on them. These are going to go right down the bottom. One on each side. And then there should be 4 sheets that have double-sided sticky tape on them. And that is so that they stick to each side of this compartment. Go ahead and peel off the sticky back. So then we just take the sticky side, stick it on. So now we're ready to start putting in the batteries. So I want to go ahead and take the top plate off of here so we have access to the compression plate. So as we look in the top of the battery, this right here, this is the BMS, all this orange cable, that's your flexible bus bars. This is a 200 amp breaker here. And then this is actually a fuse in here as well. It's protected twice. It's protected 3 times. Protected by the BMS, by a fuse, and a breaker. But what the BMS is mounted to, this plate right here, this is the compression plate, and it will tighten in and it will compress against these batteries to hold them in place. So we're just going to loosen up. There's 4 screws in there. We're going to loosen them up. I'm going to back them out, I don't know, about 1/2 inch probably. Hopefully that's enough. So there's 1 screw right here that I can't get to because this breaker is in the way. So this breaker is attached by 1 screw here at the bottom. Long screw. And then once you get both of those screws out, you can kind of set that to the side. And I still can't get to the screw. I think I need to take this whole interface board out, this communication board. All right, now that I got both of those out of there, I can finally get to this screw. Oh, I lied, there's 6 screws. There's 2 in the middle as well. Now this compression plate is loose. We should be able to fit the batteries in. So as we look at these bus bars, the one that's attached to the breaker, this should be the positive, coming off a positive battery terminal. The one coming off the battery management system, that should be the negative. So when we put the battery cells in here, we know we want a positive terminal here, negative terminal there. All right, I've got all 16 battery cells laid out here the exact way they're going to go in the box. So it's really hard to see, but there's a positive sign on this side of the battery. We have a negative sign on that side of the battery. And then that alternates all the way down. So it's positive, positive, and then positive, positive. Now the reason the batteries alternate is because we'll be hooking them up in series with little bus bars. It's going to make everything line up the way it should. So you're going to end up connecting a negative to a positive, a negative to a positive, and so forth. So when it's all in series, you'll have a positive terminal here. It'll go in series all the way through the batteries and then end on a negative terminal on this side. And that's how those bus bars hook up to the BMS and to the breaker. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start putting in the batteries. So first I got an epoxy sheet, and it's going to set on the bottom of the battery box. And then I take one of these foam EVO sheets, which is a sticky back foam. And we're going to take that and we're going to stick it to one side of these batteries. So now you can see we got the black foam on one side of the battery, and we can go ahead and put it in. So one thing I did before I started this video is I did check the voltage on each one of these batteries. You want them to be really close to each other. In fact, you want them to be within probably 10 millivolts, and these were within like 4 millivolts of each other. Now the last battery that goes in this row, it gets 2 sheets of EVO foam. It gets a thin sheet here, and then there's actually a thicker sheet that's about 1/4 inch, 3/8 thick. That's going to go on there, on this last battery. And then we're going to slide an epoxy sheet in between it and the compression plate. So now we got all the battery cells with the EVO foam in here. If you don't feel like this compression is enough to really press and hold the batteries, squish that foam a little bit. Ended up with 4 sheets of this EVO foam left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these extra sheets in here just for some added compression. I'm glad that they had these extra ones. We'll go ahead and we'll tighten up these 6 screws and we'll pull that compression plate in. So now we have our hold downs that are going to go in between each one of these battery cells. And we have a piece of EVO foam that goes on the back of them. Same sticky back foam. Same thing with the other one. So now it's time to install these flexible bus bars. We have several of the small ones. We have one large one. So the small ones go between the battery cells to connect positive and negative between each battery. And then this large one is actually made to connect the 2 rows together, and it goes down here at the very bottom. So as you're bolting in these bus bars, you will see there is different wires coming off of this hold down. And these are temperature readings, voltage readings. Basic rule of thumb, you see a red wire, try to hook it to a positive terminal. You see a black wire, try to hook it to a negative terminal. So I'll take this black wire here and I will just bolt it down onto this negative terminal with the bus bar. And I'll take this red wire and I will just bolt it down onto this positive terminal. They can only reach so far, so it should be fairly lined up with where you're going to land it. Battery's a lot heavier now with all these in here. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the top part of the battery. Now that we got the breaker back installed, we can take the flexible bus bar and land it to the batteries. Now I'm just going to go through and check the torque. Look, I missed that one. That one wasn't tight. Check the torque on every one of these. So coming out of the BMS, we got a couple of cables. So the one with the black connector goes to the black plug, and then the white connector goes to the white plug. All right, I did forget one thing. So there is this red wire here with a ring terminal. It's coming out of the battery management system. It's actually supposed to land up here on this positive terminal from the breaker. I'm going to go ahead and put in this last piece of epoxy sheeting in here. So now we need to take the battery cover and mount the LCD screen inside. So right here, this is the LCD screen, and if you look on the back side, it's got double-sided sticky tape all the way around. So we'll peel that back and we'll get it attached to the cover. Since I'm not 100% sure which way this LCD screen goes on the front, I went ahead and I've hooked it up, and then there was a second wire that hooks to the reset button. We'll go ahead and power it up and we'll figure out which way is correct. All right, we're booting up, just like that. All right, so the way the LCD screen goes on is the connector. When you're looking at the back, the connector's on the left, and these other connectors are on the bottom. That's how it should mount. So now I can go ahead and just put that in the hole and stick it down, just like so. So there's one more thing we got to do to this cover, is that hopefully you can see there's a couple studs right here on the back. That is where the fire suppressor mounts. So we'll get it mounted and then we'll start just putting everything back together. So I think I'm just going to run the tubing over to the side and then kind of around the bottom. Something like so. And then we got our cable for our reset button. And then we got our cable for the LCD screen. Ooh, there we go. That wasn't very graceful, but I did it. All right, we got our breaker on, and we'll hit the button, powering up. So now it's powered up, you just need the JK BMS app, and then you can communicate to it through Bluetooth. So the first screen that comes up, this is going to show you like all of the readings. So you can see it reads 52.68 volts. You can see every cell voltage, and then it highlights the high and low, like which is the highest and lowest cell. And it's flashing right in the middle. It says you need to modify your password. So then we'll scroll to the left, and we got to click verify password, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. Now once you've done that, you can go in here and you can hit modify password, and until you're going to have an alarm on the screen until you modify the password. So you need to do this. So we're going to set the new password as 654321. Okay, there we go. Password set successfully. Now the alarm is off the screen, so that's good. Now one way to program this quickly, on this screen you have some presets up here. One says Life P04. If you click that, it will automatically do the default settings for a Life Power battery. Now the one thing you will have to change is where it says battery capacity, it says 40, and we need to change that to 314, at least that's the size of the battery cells that we have. They're 314 amp hours, so we'll set that. And of course there is 16 batteries. Now if we scroll to the right, you have a bunch of other little settings in here, and the display always on, I'm going to turn that off, or else this screen will stay on constantly. It'll slowly drain your battery. So we're going to turn off display always on. Now anytime you want the display to come back on, you just hit the button on the front and it'll come on for a few seconds. So this is a touch screen, so you can go in to a few different menus here to be able to look at things. But you can tell the battery's not 100% charged, so we need to charge it up. After I get this battery charged all the way up, we'll come back and we'll hook it up to an inverter and we'll test it out. So I charged the battery overnight. It's now reading 100%. I think it is ready for us to hook up and test. But before that, let's go ahead. We'll take you in a little bit closer so that you can see all the features of the battery. So as we look at the screen, it has the battery voltage. It has the state of charge, minimum max voltage there. Has the temperature, how many amp hours the battery is, how many amp hours are remaining. And it also shows the current. And that should change plus or minus whether it's charging or discharging. You can change the language up here. We'll keep it on English. And now that I have the screensaver turned off, it automatically turns off like every minute. But you got another tab here for battery packs. So we'll click on, there's only one battery pack, so we'll click on this one. But you can see all 16 cells and their voltages. You can see whether it's an alarm. You can see your voltage differential. And what else we got? There's the back button up here, and then we can go to settings, and you have your RS-485 and CAN bus protocol. You can actually change it on the screen. So on the right hand side, we got our battery breaker, and we have all our indicating lights. You have RS-485 and CAN bus for inverter communication. You have RS-232 for computer communication, and then you have some more RS-485, which is to talk to other batteries. So on the left-hand side, we have positive and negative battery connections, 2 sets, and then there's also these little slip-on covers. You see these, on a lot of these batteries nowadays, this style. They're easy to just slide on, turn whatever direction you need them. So I will say there's hardly enough room to really get these last 2 in. There we go. All right, I've got the battery all hooked up to the 12K PV. It is communicating and it is powering it. And then I've also got my other Yixiang battery down here. This was it's kind of a stackable battery. It's made for you to make these batteries and then stack them up. You usually have them on some kind of a dolly so you can roll them around. But this has a JK BMS as well. And I do have these 2 communicating together. Now I was wrong about the dip switches. The dip switches are addressing. So the master has to be set to 0, and then I set the other battery to address 1, and it does communicate, and all the information now shows up on the inverter, and it also shows up on the master battery. So from the screen now you can go to packs, and then this one is address 0, and this is the master battery. You can see the state of charge on it and the voltages, but you can also go to battery 1, which is the black battery, and you can see that obviously this one's only 65% state of charge. They don't match, but you can see all the voltages, you can see all the information. So now that I've proved that the communication works between the batteries, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn this one off. I'm going to power the 12K PV with just this battery, and we'll see if we can really max out the current. All right, I got the inverter maxed out. It's putting out 8,000 watts. I think the book shows that it should pull about 167. It's pulling 166.5, and that's going to be the max amps I'm going to be able to get out of this battery with this inverter. But this battery should do 200 amps output. So now let's go over a few things on here I think they can improve on. So since I've got another battery hooked up, I've got all 4 terminals on here used. You can see you get into some of these bigger 2-aught cables, it really fills this up. There's no way I could fit these plastic covers. I can't really get them in there very easily. But overall, this area, this space right here, when you get 2-aught cables in there, it is small. It would be nice if this was bigger. Now, since this is a vertical battery, there's probably a little bit of concern that you could probably knock this around or knock it over. This is very heavy. It's probably around a 300-pound battery, and the batteries are stacked probably up to here, so it's fairly top heavy for its footprint. So I think one of the other improvements that they could make is some way to be able to attach it to a wall. So you could be able to roll it on its casters, roll it in front of the wall, maybe a couple brackets on each side that were adjustable, so you could extend it out to reach the wall or whatever you need to do. Attach it to the wall, and that would just help ensure that there's no way the battery could get knocked over. Now, I also think that you could shift it around fairly easy since it's on casters. It has locking casters, a couple of them, but I just don't think that that's going to totally keep you from being able to accidentally shift the battery. So I think a couple wall brackets, a couple simple ones on the side would be sufficient enough just to give you that insurance that it ain't going to move. And then, trying to improve the battery cable situation. I think those are really the only two things they need to do. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the way it all went together. And it's got handles here on the side. Of course, the ones we mounted on the top. And I do like the screen on there. You can at least see a lot of information, and you can change the communication protocol in the screen. Makes it a lot easier. Now, the first Yixiang battery I built that I'm sitting on right here, I have had that hooked up to the 12K PV ever since I built it. So it has been charging and discharging every day for 3, 4, 5 months now. It's been a while. And I have not had any issues with it. None whatsoever. It has run perfectly. Now this one, I got a feeling that this one's going to end up being the exact same. I got a feeling this is going to be a good quality battery, but we will run this. We will continue to run this. If we have any issues with it whatsoever, I will post it in a video. But if you guys are interested in building this battery, I will put a link down below. Like I said the other day, when I looked at it had a sale price, I think, of $17.68 or something like that. It looked like the normal price was around $17.99. Still, normal price, $1,800. That is a good price for a battery this size. So 16 kilowatt hours, and a normal battery that size is going to cost you $3,000 plus. So you're definitely saving money if you can go this route. But it all depends on whether you want to try to tackle something like this. But I think that's going to wrap up this video, guys. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.